All right. First rule of this channel, we not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be after waivers for week 3. This is going to be the proactive waiver wire show. The guys that I go pick up, after waivers clear about 12 o'clock in the morning. Now, this year, I don't know. Well, I shouldn't say this year. This week, I don't really see a lot of league winners out there. There's a lot of 1 week rentals and a lot of stashes. Remember, buys are going to start up this week. So or next week. The buys that are going to be next week are going to be the Lions, and there's going to be an awful lot of guys that are going to be, affecting a lot of people's lineups. Titans probably not a lot. The Eagles, yeah, probably a lot at this point. So remember with the Eagles, if they got that bye next week, I'm imagining they're just going to shut down a whole bunch of guys that are injured, like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. I imagine may get the week off because they can give them another week. Also, the Chargers, don't know how many guys are going to be like fantasy relevant for the Chargers this week, but I could definitely see them shutting down Justin Herbert for next week so they can get him the week after that. So just remember all that. And again, from a planning standpoint, like this is probably the last week that I'm stashing because I have to start planning for my buy as well as the buys of the guys that I'm going to be going up against. So I want to be looking at some of the guys that are out there going like, well, what would they be plugging into their lineup against me in the next week or so? Like when guys are out there going like, well, that guy, remember, I was wrong. When Gallman's good at football, I remember him back in Clemson, he just was like a 4-6 guy in the NFL level. But when I talk about this is remember those 1 week rentals, it's just not about you. It's about your opponent. So next week when the buys are hitting, Jawan Johnson may be really interesting for someone to be rolling him out there. And that means maybe he should be on the bottom of my bench so he's not going up against me. We'll break that down a little bit more. Other things out there, like I said, I already said, kind of an odd week when it comes to the waiver wires. Right now, Dallas Goedert is the tight end one. And I mean that not projected into this week. I mean literally the tight end one. Cole Kmet, based off of last week's performance. This is Dallas Goedert and Cole Kmet. Just based off their last week performance, they're tight end 1 and tight end 3. Isaiah Likely is still tight end 4 based off of week 1. And Mike Gesicki is tight end 7. So again, if you're worried about your tight end position right now, everybody's worried about their tight end position going on out there. Already talked about the buys. This is the time that we can start transitioning to looking at carrying, a primary defense and then looking a week ahead and start stashing that defense with the priority matchup. And, the Dolphins, the Titans, those are the teams that I would be looking at. And then, taking advantage of other teams. The Chiefs are not going to be available, but, looking at a team that's going, oh, there's a quarterback problem or something like that we can take advantage of. Looking at that in the future. So I can start scanning the waiver wire, look at next week's schedule is going to be. That's what I'm going to be doing in this show if you're kind of into that thing. And then breaking down the rest of the guys out there. So the schedule, I already have week 5 coming up here, looking at what some of the defenses that we could project that may be on our wires that we could be rolling them out there. This Carolina and Chicago game, this is going to be really interesting. So Chicago's got a good defense. I don't know if I trust Caleb Williams or the Red Rifle at this point. Going forward. So maybe we can start talking about Carolina rolling against Chicago. We could also start talking about Chicago definitely rolling against Carolina. I don't know how many leagues out there where the Chicago defense is going to be on the wire. That's going to be a little interesting if you're out there and you're into that thing. Both the Pats and the Dolphins right now, we can start looking at stashing for next week for their matchup. And this can go either way out there. Jacksonville and the Colts, again, betting against each other. We can look at that one. With Anthony Richardson, a little bit of a turnover machine, and Trevor Lawrence, a little bit of a turnover machine. Some of the other defense that are going to be out there, maybe Green Bay against the Rams, and this would be highly speculative because Green Bay does have a good defense, and the Rams maybe not have a lot to throw to at this point. If we're going to maybe speculate Seattle against the Giants, I don't know if I would be necessarily doing that at this point going forward. And that would be about the main ones I'd be looking at stashing a week ahead of time if I'm going to get into that thing. So if you just want to get out of here, I'll talk about this real quick. Isaac Garriendo may be a cuff right now for Jordan Mason and CMC. I'll break this down a little bit more in a second. Was listening to some of the guys talk about the 2 Bears running backs, and this is going to be highly speculative. So if someone else is in a snob league, one of these guys gets snatched up, I probably would be going after the other one way, shape, or form. I can't see the Bears letting DeAndre Swift stay on the field. So it just becomes an issue of your guesswork. I'm going to guess it's still Roschon. I'll explain why in here in a second. Was hearing about Tyler Beatty or Beatty or Bidet, whatever, He had the fastest recorded time on the field this last week. So I don't know. He reverts back to the practice squad. I'm not the only one that noticed this. I'll break this down here in a second. If you need a streamer right now, we're tracking like Tommy Tremble. So okay, vacated opportunity with Adam Thielen going on the IR. The red rifle looks better, and then we can start talking about Tommy Tremble, 78% snaps, being that guy that steps up into that role. Right now, Mike Tomlin came out and said like, "Oh, Najee is going to be good. Jalen Warren is going to be like week to week with a knee." So that means I'm still going to be ahead of the curve when it comes to Cordero Patterson. Again, this is going to be one of those things where like I have to guess right and see that Najee is out and Jalen Warren's out for me to get like Cordero Patterson. But most of your leagues, I'm going to imagine like you're going to get Cordero Patterson for a bag of chips, if not for free, on your waiver wire. And then finally, like Emmanuel Wilson. Like I've been talking about this for a while, since like week one. Probably going to be the cuff. He looks like he's going to be the cuff, and may be a little bit of standalone value going forward. Like we can start speculating about that, like 41% snaps, 12 for 50, and then 2 for 35 and a touchdown. More likely because of the situation that's going on with the Packers. Like, yeah, I probably would be cuffing just in case on that one. And then I'll start breaking some of these other ones down going on. Okay, when it comes to the 49ers, so Brock Purdy had an MRI in his back. It came back negative, whatever. CMC went to Germany, and I was listening to like one of the fantasy doctor guys talk about this. So he goes to Germany. This likely has to do with stem cells that you can't get in the United States, which probably means he's a lot further away from coming back than we'd like. So again, like those rumors that I heard, like with the 49ers bye coming up, and I believe they said like 49ers are week 10 bye. Just want to look at this real quick. Maybe week 11 bye, something along those lines. They're a bye later in the season. And that would be where they were expect like the 49ers are week 9 bye. So like that's when they're expecting there's a possibility that CMC is going to come back week 10. So like just be advised on that one. Like everything is pointing towards CMC is coming back that late in the season. Now Jordan Mason was at 75% snaps, which is down. Kyle Juszczyk was at 62% snaps. Remember, this is a game that they primarily controlled until they blew it later in the game. Isaac Garriendo, this is where it gets interesting. So 4th round draft pick, and he is like a big athletic freak. Did see on Twitter that they were lining him up at wide receiver at certain points. 14% snaps, 5 for 19, which is not particularly efficient. Now, I'm going to guess if I'm the Mason Jordan owner that I would be cuffing Garriendo at this point. And part of that is there may end up being standalone value when it comes to Isaac Garriendo because of the fact that if they're expecting CMC to come back so late, they can't put this full workload on Jordan Mason. And that means that some of those snaps are going to go someplace else. So again, you do you when it comes to running your roster. Like, does that mean sell Jordan Mason? I don't know. What'd you pay for him? Does that mean like, speculating on Isaac Garriendo up until like week 10 when we're expecting like maybe we're going to get CMC back at this point? I don't know. But that's kind of what's going on. And remember, when you're looking at some of these guys like your Braylon Allens, what's your season worth to you at this point? Like some of those high-end running backs that like I don't mind wasting a roster spot to make sure that I have the ability to win my league, because again, with those roster spots, like I have to plan ahead and go, what are they going to be used for? If I'm not streaming a defense, if I'm not like planning for bye weeks, like what are the chances? And this is what I talked about last year. What are the chances I use my like wide receiver 4, if I don't have a 3 wide receiver comp or something like that? Like, what are the chances that I'm going to be using one of these like ugly running backs, these scat backs? Like, I let those guys go. I want like league winners. That means I want my cuff. I want somebody else's cuff. And there's only so many cuffs out there right now. Like maybe we're looking at something. And again, like what are you willing to spend next week? Whether or not there's an injury, or with like Braylon Allen, you're getting to the point where like, yeah, you probably are going to be spending a lot of money just to cuff him if you're the Brees owner or at this point. So Debo, quote unquote, couple of games with a calf, still haven't heard anything on that. Brandon Ayuk was at 80% snaps, still hung over. Jawan Jennings in this one, I already talked about this in after waivers. And this gets like, or Chasing the Dragon, this gets like really interesting because of some of the other stuff that's going on. He was at 85% snaps, 12 for 11, 175 through tugs. I'm going to guess regression to the mean on this one. But again, like you're probably buying a wide receiver 2 for 1 week. That's all I'm going to say on that one, because Ricky Pearsall is going to probably come off the pup after next week. And then we're talking about like Debo, Brandon Ayuk, Kittle, and Ricky Pearsall. The other thing to remember with this, and it doesn't matter, is the 49ers are, infamous for running not 3 wide receivers. They go 2 tight ends. They go Kyle Juszczyk at 62% snaps. So again, you're buying a guy probably for just 1 week. Now, could he theoretically be some type of like wide receiver handcuff? Probably not, because Ricky Pearsall's coming back. And at that point, like Ricky Pearsall's a first round draft pick. Then I'm going to guess that you're going to get into some type of like receiver by committee if somebody goes down. Like Jennings is going to have to maintain that role. So again, like, I'm more concerned with making sure I don't have to go up against Jennings than like really fighting for him. And that means like just blocking. I get really dirty in my league. So like I'll hold on to a guy until like, 30 seconds before kickoff, and then I'll just throw them away because they're not interesting to me. No one else gets to use them against me because I'm a secret evil genius when it comes down to that stuff. So Ronnie Bell was at 42% snaps. Kittle's still out with a hamstring. I did see that like they're hopeful he'll play this week. Trent Saubert was at 86% snaps. I'm not chasing the second tight end for the 49ers when I got like Jennings that I'd be rather chasing at that point. I want to come after it. Now with the Bears, some hope. I did watch some of this. Some of this is the good of Caleb Williams. Some of this is the bad of Caleb Williams. A lot of this is coaching on top of that when it comes down to this stuff. I am hoping that the offense just goes like, hey, let's just, throw it 60 times a game, because that would be awesome from a fantasy football perspective. And again, like they don't care about your fantasy lineup, but I don't know how many games that they're going to be throwing like 52 pass attempts a game, but we'll get ready to that. Now, if Rome got dropped, yeah, that would be a theoretical guy that we could be talking about, like theoretical league winner on that. Now, DeAndre Swift for that 53% snaps, 13 for 20, 4 for 2 for 22. And I did see that he dropped a screen pass on this one. So like, he's not worth a bag of chips. Like anybody that will give you like a kicker, I'd be getting rid of DeAndre Swift. Like that's me. You run your own roster when it comes down to that. Now with Herbert, he was at 10% snaps, and I can bring these guys up so we can talk about it. He's at 10% snaps, but he's the goal line back. And then the other one is Roshan, and he's at 37% snaps because their offensive line is so bad that they need the pass blocker, with Travis Homer going on IR with his finger. So at this point, if the offense functions in a certain capacity, Roshan Johnson is going to be the guy, like by far, because he's going to be that RB2 land. He's going to do the pass blocking, which means he's going to get a certain amount of gravy to go along with a certain amount of pass receptions, especially into like your PPR leagues. If you're expecting like some type of first and second down running back, like an RB2, maybe it's Khalil Herbert. Again, like this is going to get like really dirty. This is all after waiver stuff, like guys that I'd be stashing going after down the line. Khalil Herbert's likely to walk in free agency. They still got like 3 years. I think the out for DeAndre Swift is going to be next year. That would be an ugly cut. He's just been really bad. I was watching some of that. Like he's, again, the stuff that DeAndre Swift does well, and the reason why he's been on a whole bunch of teams, like, yeah, he does a lot of other stuff not good at this point. So, like, you're speculating on trying to get a running back with one of these guys. And if they're going to not break their toy when it comes to like Caleb Williams, they're going to have to open up the offense, do what he does well, and develop him, and not be really concerned with like trying to run for the sake of running. That's from a fantasy football perspective. I'd be looking at that again. If you're in deeper leagues and you want to stash one of these guys going on. Now, DJ Moore's at 10% or 10 targets a game. Like, I'm not worried about that. Keenan Allen's still out with the heel. And again, I talked about Rome, 99% snaps, 11 for 6, 112, 191 in the air yards. So again, yeah, that's league winner all over that one on this case. And then with like old man Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, questionable some stuff going on down the line. Like, you can just see that they're just going to go like, hey, throw 11 times to Rome and see if we can have something occur with this. Now, Cole Kmet was at 81% snaps. Gerald Everett was at 33% snaps. Cole Kmet 11 for 10 for 97. And again, this is just bad coaching and management by your GM and your coach. Like when you have, you pay a guy and then you don't play a guy and then you don't give them opportunities going forward. So again, that's like pretty much what I have to say on this. And if Keenan Allen continues to be out, like Cole Kmet is going to be a weekly start because he's going to be a number 3. Like any tight end that's the number 3 in their offense should be starting fantasy. Any tight end that's going to be the number 1 or number 2 in their offense could be like a unicorn at that point. So that's the long and short of that. Now, Monday Night Football with the Bengals, Joe Burrow looked like Joe Burrow. Zach Moss, 76% snaps, 12 for 58, and a tug, another 6 for 5 for 39. But Chase Brown, 24% snaps, 7 for 62, 3 for 2 for 7. So you're probably getting that RB2 with Zach Moss. When it comes down to Chase Brown, yeah, he may still be a cuff specifically only for that Zach Moss owner, maybe. But it does appear that there's going to be a certain design role for Chase Brown. If they can keep the efficiency high, they're going to keep giving him. Like, I don't think that you're necessarily going to get like any type of predictability when it comes to Chase Brown. But this is generally kind of what we were thinking was going to be the backfield. And again, like, that ugly RB2 with Zach Moss with the ability to fall in the end zone. And if he's going to get a certain amount of receiving work, that's going to raise him up into theoretically flirting with like running back one land. So again, like I don't know who would be selling him because of the running back market, but like we can generally guess that like, yeah, probably like, 3-to-1 usage, a little bit of his receiving work, check down monster work, and like most of the good running back work is going to go to Zach Moss. Nothing to say about Chase. T. Higgins was at 90% snaps in his first game back, 6 for 3 for 39. Already talked about Yosivas on Chasing the Dragon. 77% snaps, 7 for 5 for 53, and a tug. And he's going to be like solid wide receiver 3, probably like rest of the season at this point. I'm going to guess on that. Probably with a little bit more upside because of the ability. If he's the red zone guy, this goes back to last year where he's the red zone guy. If he's the red zone guy, yeah, he's going to have that week to week, ability to give you over a 40-degree day because he's going to get red zone targets on top of probably what would project to be a pretty safe floor in this one. So, Jermaine Burton was only at 5% snaps. So our hopes of stashing Jermaine Burton, like that's why I say like I'm thinking about stashing him. I want to see that go up like 5% snaps. We get a pretty good idea between Chase, T. Higgins, and Yosivas what it's going to look like. Charlie Jones was at 3% snaps, and Trenton Irwin was a healthy scratch in this one. So giving an idea, like, yeah, probably not going to be chasing any other wide receivers. The top 3, they know what they got, and they're going to be rolling them out there when I'm looking at. Gesicki was at 50% snaps, 5 for 4 for 47. That's with Tanner Hudson, a healthy scratch. And then Eric All, again, another guy I was thinking about stashing. He was at 34% snaps, 4 for 4 for 22. Probably more of a dynasty thing because I imagine Drew Sample at 40% snaps, they're going to stay, they're going to do Bengals things where they're all going to have a package. They're all going to be on the field. None of them are fantasy relevant, so I probably don't care about that. Bills, Monday night blowout, so take some of this with a grain of salt. Josh Allen, once again, did Josh Allen things. James Cook, 50% snaps, 6-yard rushing touchdown. Why is this a big deal? Because he's getting the red zone opportunity in the offense. Now, Ty Johnson was at 28% snaps. Ray Davis in a blowout, 19% snaps, not very efficient. I would bet at this point with what we're looking at, there's no reason to be cuffing anybody. Ty Johnson and Ray Davis would be running back by committee. Ty Johnson would have his role as the pass receiver. Ray Davis would be like the thumper. Probably not worth cuffing either one of these guys if Ray Davis isn't efficient on limited opportunities. Now, if Khalil Shakur is available in your leagues, and I'm going to screw around with my notes real quick. If he's available in your leagues, and I did look it up like before, yesterday, 60 to 70% of leagues, you're looking at a guy that's going to be flirting with, 1,000 yards receiving, but with the math right now, like you're looking at a guy that's going to be around 11 touchdowns. So that's going to put him like in that wide receiver 2 type of range if he's available. So that would be another guy I would probably be spending on, before waivers clear if he's available. Now, I did see on Twitter that Keon Coleman was benched in the first quarter for being late, 31% snaps, did get a touchdown. Matt Collins stays at 72% snaps. MVS was at 77% snaps, and Curtis Samuel's at 27% snaps. Now, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, 53% snaps, 52% snaps. Doesn't matter because of the blowout. Dalton Kincaid, 5 for 3 for 41 and a touchdown in this one. So again, like, everybody's hurting at tight end when it comes to this point. Like, you were right if you went after like Gesicki. You were right if you went after Cole Kmet, probably off of waivers, and you were right if you went after Dallas Goedert and guessed correctly. And again, this is like the probability standpoint, the luck factor. With Dallas Goedert, you were like, so what's going to happen is AJ Brown's going to hurt a hamstring, and then Devontae Smith is going to get knocked out of a game, and then magically I have like a unicorn tight end who, the week that I thought that he was going to blow up, he didn't blow up. Like, the guy in my main money league benched Dallas Goedert this week because it makes sense. He didn't get it done when he had the opportunity. I'm going to go in a different direction when it comes down to that. And then, he does like 170 in the passing game going forward. Okay, the Broncos, this gets a little interesting when it comes to Bo Nix, 25 of 36, 216, another 9 for 47 and a tuck. Now, I didn't talk about this. Go back to the top of my notes. When it comes to what you're looking at, like your shallower leagues versus your deeper leagues, remember in your 2 quarterback leagues, like you're handcuffing backups at this point. Like Jameis Winston should be rostered in 2 quarterback leagues, your super flex leagues that are out there right now, because that theoretical possibility that Jameis Winston takes over a higher neutral passing rate offense with all those toys, and Jameis Winston is just like Jameis Winston. Right, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. Like, I don't know why you would leave that guy on the waiver wire. So like your shallower leagues, and this is a little funny because my more competitive leagues, there are certain guys on the waiver wire that have weekly value because those guys are really competitive about ability to win leagues. Now, in my high school league, which is less competitive, there's not a lot of roster churn because those guys are just, half the league just wakes up, sets their lineup, and then they go play with their kids. And I bring this up because there are more guys on that less competitive league that have league winner written on them on the waiver wire, but there's nobody that I would go like, I want to plug in this week, because they'll go and they'll look at like a Jawan Jennings and they'll go like, well, I need like 8.6 points and I'll go plug that guy in. So like when I'm looking at some of these guys in these leagues, I have to be able to, guess what I need based off the league personality when I start breaking these guys down. So with your Bo Nix is, like that 9 for 47 and the ability for him to score rushing touchdowns, that's going to make him, even in your shallower leagues, like really interesting on a week-to-week basis. Now, if we can talk about like that rookie step forward that guys tend to make, like now we can start to like really think about like, well, what's this worth? Should I be stashing these guys when we're starting to look at like your Patrick Mahomes, not being Patrick Mahomes, like some of these guys out there, CJ Stroud, like, passing is going to be down, scoring is going to be down. If I want to win my league, and again, the same process will win me a league, will lose me a league. If I want to win my league, I have to have one of these rushing upside quarterbacks that are going to give me enough passing work to be able to win me a league at that point. Now we're starting to already talk about that when it comes to Bo Nix. Now, Javonte Williams was at 51% snaps. He lost a fumble. He did, when it comes to red zone, he had 2 carries, 1 target. Now, I've listened to a whole bunch of other people talk about that, like, he lacks juice. Well, I thought he already always lacked juice. He was a 4.6 guy coming out of college. Now, Jaleel McLaughlin was at 26% snaps. He did have 2 red zone carries, and he did tug one. But Beatty in this one, 19% snaps, 9 for 70. He goes back to the practice squad. The other thing is, remember, like Audric Estime is on IR at this point. I don't know how desperate you would be in what type of deeper league that you would be going after, like Beatty, Bidet, whatever. With Audric Estime, like there's a better chance that like Javonte Williams comes up with a magical like finger injury than to tell me the road for one of these guys to be like a league winner at this point than trying to guess right. Like I'm not particularly interested in the running backs. When it comes to the wide receivers, on the other hand, Courtland Sutton, I guess, is a buy right now because we can start speculating again on Bo Nix. So if I can get a bag of chips for Courtland Sutton, 74% snaps, 11 for 7 for 68, 113 air yards, maybe a buy. Josh Reynolds was at 51% snaps. Little Jordan was Humphrey was at 74% snaps, 8 for 6 for 73. Only 43 air yards, but like this was the guy last year. He, obviously he looks like he's the wide receiver 2 when it comes down to that. If you're into Troy Franklin, 25% snaps, 5 targets, 47 air yards. So like this would be one of the guys that we could start talking about, like maybe is a stash at this point. And again, when we start talking about the ability to have like a low amount of opportunities or from a stat percentage standpoint, but an actual high amount of opportunities off of that, it does appear that maybe we can speculate on Troy Franklin. This would be like one of those guys. I didn't think he was necessarily good at football, but they gave him an opportunity in this one. Marvin Mims, again, if you're tracking this one, like 24% snaps, he's not a thing. The other thing when it comes to Greg Dolch for the Broncos, he was at 25% snaps. That's down. Adam Troutman was at 68% snaps. So again, like if you're holding Dolch at all in deeper leagues, like that should be a pretty good indication, like something's changing there. Browns, Deshaun Watson, 2 fumbles lost in this game. Jameis Winston comes in, 3% snaps, 2 for 1. Again, he's taken some of the quarterback sneak work. Jerome Ford, 79% snaps, 10 for 37, another 4 for 3 for 33. This is going to be inconsistent usage on a questionable offense. Nick Chubb is not supposed to come back until midway through the season, and that would be like dependent on like how good the Browns are. Like, do they want to sell tickets or something like that? So just remember with Jerome Ford, like, yeah, you are definitely hoping that Jameis Winston can take over that offense. So Donta Foreman was at 16% snaps with Pierre Strong out with a hamstring, and then I haven't heard anything about like Royce Freeman. Now, Amari Cooper, I did see he get knocked out of the game on the second to last play. Like no news on him at this point. He was at 90% snaps, 12 for 7 for 86, 2 tugs in this one, 129 air yards. So in this one, like, this is why like buying some of these guys or selling some of these guys for a bag of chips can be like, both, lucrative, and it also could be like a bad idea when it comes down to that stuff. But again, like I would still expect that maybe that flop is going to happen with Jameis Winston at this point. So like, whatever on that one. If you think you can sell high, fine. If you think you can you want to hold on to him, I can understand that. Judy's at 90% snaps. Elijah Moore 81. Cedric Tillman 33. I don't care. David Njoku is still out with an ankle. They didn't IR him at this point, so like maybe next week would be the week I would expect him back at this point, based off the news. I haven't even seen like a limited practice participation in this one. So Bucks, I just have written down welcome to the NFL. Like, so when we think that we understand something after 2 weeks, like it always surprises us. So the main thing on this one, this is why I have this up. When we talk about the Buccaneers and how to deal with like Rachaad White and Bucky Irving. So you can see that Rachaad White, he's at 74% snaps. And this is primarily in a blowout against the Broncos. The Broncos blew him out. 6 for 17 to go along with 6 for 5 for 18. Now, do I think Bucky Irving is better at football in general? Yeah. So I'm not that, like, that's not the point of this channel when we start talking about this stuff. The main thing with Bucky Irving, it becomes out like 32% snaps, 9 for 70, 3 for 14 in this one. And you got to remember, like, at a certain point when the game's getting out of hand, that 74% snaps is going to Rachaad White, because they're throwing, because they're behind. So when it comes to like some of the work with Bucky Irving, when it became clear that this game is a blowout, that's when he comes to the game. I'm still cuffing. That's fine. There is theoretically a road as a lottery ticket to a league winner on this one. Like he shouldn't have been. He should have already been rostered early on in the season when he did like 31% snaps against Washington. He should have been rostered as a cuff. So I don't know how many leagues you're going to have be available. I'm not probably going to be rolling him out as a fill-in at this point. But like if you feel a little bit risky because you need that like desperation RB2, I think there are better guys to be chasing at this point when we come down to some of that stuff. K Dotton at this point was at 91% snaps, 8 for 7 for 47 with a fumble loss. And again, like this is why tracking opportunity, like snap share, is so important. Like guys that are just on the field that much are going to have fantasy relevant weeks. Without that fumble in your Devils leagues, you're going to look at like a 40-degree day from a tight end position. Mike Evans was at 82% snaps, 3 targets. Chris Godwin, again, like league winner, 89% snaps, 9 for 6 for 53 and a tug. Jalen McMillan, 77% snaps, 1 target. Probably will not be relevant without an injury in this offense going forward. All right, the Cardinals. So James Conner was at 75% snaps. He's going to be a volume-based RB2 when we get down to that. And this is why I have like the Cardinals pulled up. Without the ability for him to fall in the end zone, and I don't want to say like when you're right, you're right. But without the ability for him to fall in the end zone and design passing work, that's why he's going to be limited as a volume-based RB2. So if you're interested in your Trey Benson shares, when this team gets into a knife fight, Trey Benson's at 3% snaps. They don't trust him. That's the easy way to look at it, because when they get into this knife fight, you're looking at 20% snaps with Amari DiMercato. That's going to be in the game. What's that mean from a cuff standpoint? You're looking at a capped out RB2 if James Conner goes down, because they still are not going to trust Trey Benson with some of that work. And that means on the field for receiving work, because that's going to go to DiMercato. You know what that also means? You're looking at a possibility that DiMercato is going to be the red zone guy when they get down there. So you might just get a guy that's going to get all the gravy. I don't know how much that's worth to you. So again, like how deep's your league when it comes to having to cuff that guy or hold him as a lottery ticket? Marvin Harrison, 88% snaps, 11 targets, 184 air yards. So like, yeah, you're going to have some spike weeks off that. Michael Wilson, 90% snaps, 9 for 8 for 64. Again, probably an upgrade if McBride's out. I've already seen that a whole bunch of other people have the same logic as I do when it comes down to that. Like if you're chasing that type of thing. Greg Dortch was at 66% snaps. Again, McBride, 85% snaps, 6 targets. He's in the concussion protocol. I was seeing someplace that like, it's a good idea to expect with all the rule changes when it comes to the concussions that like guys aren't going to play. There's about like 75% snaps that they will play with their first concussion, something like that. They were not going to get hold out with that one. If you're going to be chasing the 2 Cardinals tight ends, and I don't necessarily think this is a bad idea. I think that Tip Riemann in your deeper leagues is going to be the guy that I would be a little bit more interested in to be going after, because Elijah Higgins, 6'3", 235, he's the receiving tight end. He's likely the guy that's going to be on the field like 30 to 50% of the time. If there's a guy in this offense that's going to get like the full load, Tip Riemann, 6'4", 273, he's the blocker. Not only is he a blocker, he's got good athletic measurables. So if there's a guy that's going to take a step forward, if you don't want to be gambling on Michael Wilson and you want to run a tight end, that won't break your heart, probably going to be better guys out there, but in your deeper leagues where you don't have the ability, like on the waiver wire, like, yeah, I would be throwing a dart at this like third round draft pick with good athletic measurables. All right, Chargers. First and foremost, Joe Alt is out with an MCL, and remember they have a week 5 bye, so he's probably going to miss multiple weeks. That means Justin Jefferson is probably going to be missing multiple weeks. When Justin Herbert went out this last game, Taylor Heineke was the guy that came in, like, I think, like, serviceable, maybe a slight upgrade from Easton Stick if you have to be going that. This means that, like, J.K. Dobbins, 65% snaps, 25 for 44, 3 for 3 for 10 is probably not a particularly good role because, like, they can stack the box against, like, Taylor Heineke. They're not going to run the same way with Joe Alt at this point when I'm looking at those guys. Now, the bigger thing with J.K. Dobbins, it does appear that the running back competition is over. Gus Bus, 35% snaps. I think he only had like 3 carries in this one. So, like, yeah, if you're worried about, like, letting go of Gus Bus at this point, like, there's probably a better chance that Kamini Valdell would end up taking the job if J.K. Dobbins goes down in the future. And unless the offense is good enough to scare other teams when it comes to the passing game, that's what Justin Herbert's there for. Like, I don't know how much these guys are really going to have value. That this would potentially really set the offense back. You're betting on Harbaugh being the better coach in this one when it comes down to that in the future. Quentin Johnson, 80% snaps, 2 for 2 for 44 and a tug. So, like, sometimes I don't need to know how the sausage is made on that one. But Ladd McConkey, 72% snaps, 6 for 3 for 44. Yeah, he's the number one. There may be more value for him down the line after the bye week when Justin Herbert, theoretically comes back from the ankle. I'm not holding on to any of these guys. I think, Quentin Johnson, if you rolled him and you got your tug, like, maybe 80% snaps, like, the usage is going to Ladd McConkey. Josh Palmer was out with a knee. Fukoku was at 72% snaps in this one. And then I don't really care about the tight ends going forward. Now, Patrick Mahomes and Chiefs, no comment on that one. When it comes to Carson Steele, this is why I have his lovely Thor hair pulled up. A lot of stuff to break down. So they cut Keontae Ingram today. They signed Kareem Hunt to the 53-man roster, the active roster. This doesn't bother me because, like, all of these guys are slow. So Carson Steele, he ran a 4.77. I think that's what I looked up today. P. Ryan was like a 4.65. Hunt was like a 4.65. And then CEH was a 4.6 guy. Like, none of these guys have any speed whatsoever. The interesting guy that had any speed, the size speed combination, was Keontae Ingram. He ran like a 4.5. So they cut the fast guy in this offense. So when you're looking at Carson Steele, 62% snaps, 17 for 72, 2 for 1 for 2, with Samaje Perine, and I'm going to bring this guy, cleared them all out. When you're looking at, like, Samaje Perine in this offense, most of his usage came earlier in the game because I was kind of, like, looking at the box score when it happened. And, he went back into his role as a pass receiver. So the 6 for 25 happened early, and then it was all Carson Steele in this offense. So when you look at, like, your Kareem Hunt and your Samaje Perine, there is a redundancy, which means that, like, Kareem Hunt can step in and be the Carson Steele, Isaiah Pacheco role. He can also step in and be the Samaje Perine pass blocking, pass receiving role. He can do both those jobs. That's why you would have him as your number 3 in your offense. So I would be more concerned that they're going to, like, cut Samaje Perine down the line because Kareem Hunt's 29 years old and he's slow. So, like, they brought in a guy to do the trustworthy work. Now, when it comes to CEH coming off the pup, remember, he's slow. He lost his job to Isaiah Pacheco in the first place. He would do the trustworthy work down the line. The same role that you're looking at with, like, Perine, same role that you're looking at Kareem Hunt would be what CEH is doing. So when you're looking at, like, your Carson Steele, like, he had a good week when it came to what they asked him to do, which is put the offense in good positive game scripts. 2nd and 7s to 2nd and 4s. That's what they're asking Carson Steele to do. That's what he did, 17 for 72. And then another 2 for 1 for 2. What's this mean from a fantasy football perspective? That means if the offense is in that okay category, you're going to have a guy that's going to have a certain amount of red zone opportunities. He's going to get red zone monster work, and, he's going to get the gravy. He's an RB2. That's the long and short of it. I'm not concerned with anybody else in this backfield until Isaiah Pacheco can come back from the broken ankle and then ramp back up into taking the job. It does look like Carson Steele is the guy. That's even with the Kareem Hunt signing going up, like, it doesn't matter because Keontae Ingram was never going to be the guy that's going to eat into that. Now, is there a possibility that Carson Steele can't keep the job because he's just not good at football? Yeah, still on the table. Doesn't mean that I want anybody else besides Carson Steele when it comes to this offense. Now, Rashee Rice, still a league winner in this one. The interesting thing on this one is Juju. He was up to 55% snaps. So he may end up being the wide receiver 2 in this offense. Xavier Worthy was down to 50% snaps. So again, boom bust guy in this offense. Justin Watson was down to 39% snaps. Sky Moore was at 20% snaps. So yeah, Travis Kelce, all I got to say is Father Time is undefeated on that one. Noah Gray was at 50% snaps, and Wiley was consistent at 22% snaps. All right, moving on to the Colts. Yeah, they're going to be really inconsistent. You're looking at a relatively good matchups when it comes to Anthony Richardson. I am trying to sell my shares because I went and I drafted Jalen Daniels. I am going to be trying to sell Anthony Richardson. You're looking at after the Pittsburgh game, because imagine this could be pretty ugly. Jacksonville and Tennessee, Miami, you might get a pretty good stretch where you can either roll your Anthony Richardson shares out or sell high at a certain point. But I would be selling low at this point with that ability. Like, I would rather have my Sam Darnold week to week shares than the ability to go knife fight with anybody in the league with Anthony Richardson when it comes down to that. Like I watched some tape. Yeah. He's not going to be able to keep the offense on track, which means you are generally banking on the two things that like you knew you were getting coming in the season, which is his ability to throw bombs and his ability to rush in the end zone. If he can't keep the offense on the field, that's going to limit both those opportunities in the future. So JT was back up to 88% snaps. Trey Sermon was at 9% snaps. He did vulture the touchdown in this one. And then Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Adonai Mitchell, they're all probably not fantasy relevant at this point because of what's going on with Anthony Richardson. Adonai Mitchell was down to 13% snaps in this game. Josh Downs back was at 57% snaps. If I really, really needed to re-rolling somebody out there, it would be Alec Pierce in this one. I don't care about their tight ends. Redskins on Monday Night Football. So hopefully you drafted Dayton Daniels at this point, because when you're right on that one. B-Rob was at 76% snaps with a big asterisk. He wasn't very efficient in this one. Eckler went out with a concussion. He was at 22% snaps. He did look better in this game. So again, like they're both going to be in that RB2 range if Austin Eckler can come back. And McNichols was the third string running back at 14% snaps if you're into that type of thing. Now, when it comes to Scary Terry, yeah, he's a buy high, he's a sell high, whatever you want to do with that. This offense does look like it's going to be better than what you paid for. That's all I got to say on that one. Luke McCaffrey was at 34% snaps. That's down 3 for 3 for 44. I did see a lot of that was early. I don't know on that one. Now, the interesting thing, I think I pulled it up. I didn't bring it up right here. The interesting thing that if I was going to be stashing anybody because of the direction of this offense, and this is going to be cap, this is not going to be like I'm going to win leagues off of this. Noah Brown. So remember, he gets cut off the Texans. That was a little surprising. He goes to the Redskins. He's at 22% snaps, 3 for 3 for 29. That was at 28% snaps, 3 for 3 for 56. So at a certain point, if I was going to design an offense, Scary Terry would be my Z, and then Noah Brown would be my X, which means that he's going to have a certain amount if the snaps can go up. Because again, when he's on the field, he's getting opportunities. That's the long and short of it. And I can imagine that we can start tracking that he's going to be on the field more. Doesn't necessarily mean the opportunities are going to go up, but we can kind of speculate when it comes down to that. So this would be a deeper league ad if you're really hurting at wide receiver. I don't know how many people out there are hurting at wide receivers. They seem to be growing on trees this year. Zach Ertz was at 64% snaps, which is a little surprising. I expected it was going to be a little bit higher, but Sanat was at 44% snaps. Bates was at 56% snaps. Ertz 5 for 5 for 38 in this one. He did fumble. It wasn't lost. So, there's another guy that I guess like would be on that streamability list when it comes to like being on the field, getting opportunities. So the Cowboys, I did see that their defense right now is like historically bad, which in general means buy Dak and buy some of the pieces like Ferguson. I'm not interested in the backfield. Zeke was at 19% snaps. If you're holding on to him, I don't know what you're paying attention to. Dowdle was at 46% snaps. Because of some of the work that he's going to get, like I guess you could probably keep him in that range of RB2. I don't really want any of the backfield for the Cowboys. I'm still waiting on Dalvin Cook eventually to come back. But in this script against Baltimore, that 5 for 3 for 24 and somewhat efficient 8 for 32, the problem you're going to run into, like Hunter Lipinski, I think is his name. He's the fullback. He was getting passing down work. So 3 for 2 for 41. That's how capped out Rico Dowdle is going to be for the foreseeable future in this one. Brandon Cooks was at 80% snaps. Jalen Tolbert was at 75% snaps. If you want to be getting what basically is like the number 3 or number 4 in this offense, it would be Jalen Tolbert at this point. And then Ferguson back from the knee, 66% snaps, 11 for 6 for 95. Schoonmaker was at 31% snaps. All right, moving on to the Dolphins. Tua is still on IR. Skylar Thompson is out right now with the chest. Tim Boyle came in for Skylar Thompson. They went out and they got Tyler Huntley. I did see that like they are thinking about bringing somebody else in, whatever that means. Now, Tyler Huntley may be your best bet when it comes to the toys. I put a really bad trade offer out when it comes to Devin Achane if you want to be buying low on this offense because they look like they're not going to be able to do anything going forward. Mostert was out. Jeff Wilson at 23% snaps. Wright was at 21% snaps. Alec Ingold was at 43% snaps in those last games. So again, Achane 74% snaps. That's all I got to know because like he's that good. So even with the down week because of how bad the offense is, if I can take advantage of a scared owner, I would. If I have Achane and I looked at what my box score was, like that 74% snaps, that's all I really want to know. And again, you got another guy that's going to have a certain amount of design passing work if you're worried about that going forward. Nothing to talk about when it comes to Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. Like, we already knew that stuff. Washington was inactive. OBJ would be coming off the pup. So I'm not really caring about the tight ends when it comes to the Dolphins going forward. All right. When it comes to the Eagles, Jalen Hurts is a turnover machine. Nothing new. Remember, week 5 bye. So you got to be planning for a number of guys missing weeks, including Barkley. 81% snaps. He's the league winner at this point. Gainwell was at 19th% snaps. AJ Brown was out with a hamstring. Smith is in the concussion protocol. That was pretty nasty. Your guess is as good as mine what it's going to look like from a wide receiver perspective if you want to be chasing some of these guys. So Jahan Dotson was at 88% snaps, 3 for 2 for 8. So that ain't the guy. Paris Campbell was at 50% snaps. He's also kind of like a gadget slot only guy. Johnny Wilson, 33% snaps, 2 for 1 for 8. If there was a guy that I was throwing a dart at, 6'6", Johnny Wilson, he may be the guy. Britton Covey, the guy that we were tracking, he's on IR with the shoulder. That means like Dallas Goedert, he's probably like the tight end 1 in fantasy right now going into next week. And again, the big old asterisk on this one would be like when everybody knows that you're throwing to that guy, someone else is probably going to get opportunities. And if you're in that league and you have to go after a guy like, I'm going to guess it's like Johnny Wilson at this point. And I'm not particularly interested in this. There's probably better guys that I would be going after when it comes to this. And I can bring him up so we can talk about good old Johnny Wilson. He's a 6th-round draft pick that was supposed to go higher in the draft, 6'6", 228. Some questions about whether or not he should be converted to tight end. I watched the tape on him. I think that he is an X, 4'6" guy, but like more athletic measurables than that, or more athleticism than you would expect from a guy 6'6", 228 in this one. So if there was a guy that I would be looking at to potentially be the guy that's the beneficiary of all this, it would be him, especially because like I can see red zone usage when it comes down to that. If you're trying to chase that like Sivas type of like 2 touchdown week going forward. All right, the Falcons. Bijan 82% snaps, red zone usage 4. Tyler Algier 7 for 32 on 21% snaps. He's a cuff, red zone usage 2. So like that's gonna really cap Bijan's usage or ceiling when it comes down to it. Like you are gonna be looking at Tyler Algier eating a couple or vulturing a couple touchdowns this year when it comes down to that. Drake London 9 targets. Darnell Mooney 8 for 8 for 66. Only 24 air yards, was a little interesting compared to last week. Drake London led everybody at 81% or 81 air yards. Ray-May McLeod was at 95% snaps. So that means they're living in 3 wide receivers on this one. Kyle Pitts only 69% snaps, 5 for 2 for 59, 66 air yards, which is pretty good when it comes down to tight ends this year. Like there may be no tight ends or no unicorns from a tight end perspective. So again, like, I'm just going to be chasing that if I drafted Kyle Pitts at the price I spent. All right, Giants. No comment on Danny Dimes. Like you do you if you want to be chasing that. Devin Singletary, 68% snaps, fumble loss for the 2nd straight week. So this is like one of the bigger reasons why Tyrone Tracy gets like really interesting is they're not paying Devin Singletary a lot, $5 million a year. His snaps are down 68%. he fumbles back-to-back weeks, which, normally that tells me that like they're probably going to give somebody else an opportunity because they can't trust you. Now, 16 for 65 and a rushing touchdown, 4 for 4 for 43. That's the problem is, if he can get the receiving work, because that's what like Tyrone Tracy is going to be looking at. But 31% snaps in this game, 5 for 23, 2 for 2 for 17. Yeah, at this point, you're definitely stashing because you're expecting a slight uptick in the opportunities going on this week. And then we can start breaking down if it's the right opportunities in this one. Like with the way the offense is going to be structured, like this is probably their number 2 option to make sure that like everybody and their mother doesn't like, double team Malik Neighbors at this point. And again, he's a league winner when it comes to Malik Neighbors. I'll just say this, like the way I draft a guy like Malik Neighbors is a pure coin flip because of the price that you're going at. You're getting at a guy that could like bust. You're getting at a guy that could like win leagues. I generally stay away from those guys because they're coin flips. I like guys that like I can win on when I draft them. So knowing that like if I'm spending like a 3rd or 4th round draft pick on a guy that could be like an ugly wide receiver 3, I'm going to have a hard time getting off my roster. I would stay away from those guys. On the same way that like there are guys out there who can go like, well, if I spend on this guy, he's a league winner right now. When you're wrong, you're wrong. Slayton was at 88% snaps. He got knocked out with a thumb. Wandale Robinson, I don't care. Slayton, I don't care. Theo Johnson, if you're into that type of thing, 81% snaps, 3 for 1 for 13 in this game. So like you're still kind of tracking that there is a possibility that like the rookie is trending. It just becomes an issue like what week are we going to be picking up our Theo Johnson shares? And then when are we rolling him out there as potentially one of the few unicorns that are out there? So I could definitely see by the end of the season, you're looking at Malik Neighbors as the number 1, Theo Johnson as the number 2, and then Tyrone Tracy is going to be the number 3 as the running back, which means that like he is going to be, a league winner when it comes out. So like, yeah, a little bit of interesting speculation when it comes to the Giants going forward because of the rookies that they have on their roster. All right, the Jaguars, Monday Night Football blowout. This was like ugly. It was like 47-10. So no comment on Trevor Lawrence because, some of the offense that we thought were going to be good are going to be bad. And I did see some conversations about like he leads the league in turnovers and no one's talking about that. Travis Etienne, 69% snaps. He dominated the usage. He did have 6 targets, in a blowout when it comes down to that. So like the bigger issue with Etienne is if the offense is bad, he's going to have limited opportunities to score touchdowns. When it comes to the wide receivers, it breaks down like this. Gabe Davis was at 76% snaps, 6 targets, 54 air yards. Christian Kirk was at 73% snaps, the same as Brian Thomas Jr. Christian Kirk had 10 targets, 76 air yards. So again, how consistent this offense is going to be is that's going to depend on like if Christian Kirk is a wide receiver 3 or Christian Kirk is a wide receiver 2. Now, Brian Thomas, 9 targets, 72 air yards. That's not great. I was expecting like higher air yards when it comes to the 9 targets, especially because he didn't cash all those in. It wasn't very efficient when it comes down to that. But because of the targets, he would end up being a hold, in my opinion. I'm probably going to be holding on to him unless certain guys clear waivers, and then I have to stash him over Brian Thomas because you're probably going to get away with him being on the waiver wire one week, and I can go knife fight for him if I really want him. But at this point, like the offense isn't good. Evan Ingram was out with a hamstring. Already talked about Brenton Strange in Chasing the Dragon. 70% snaps, 5 targets, 1 tug. When I was trying to look this up earlier, he has 121 air yards on the season. I couldn't find the air yards for last week. I think it was at 39 if I did the math right, if you're wondering, which is not great. It's not bad when it comes to tight end. Jets, I'm just going to start off. Never trust Thursday Night Football. Just remember that in the future. Aaron Rodgers, like he if we're going to talk about like who's the best quarterback in the league with what he did on Thursday night, like he would be back up there. Like, there are guys that from a fantasy football perspective, I would want more than Aaron Rodgers. But what he did on Thursday night when I was watching some of the breakdowns on that, like, yeah, he's on a very short list of the type of guy that you would want to go into like a knife fight with and win a Super Bowl when it comes down to that. Now, Breece Hall, 71% snaps. He may not be a unicorn because of Braylon Allen's 32% snaps, but again, like we already talked about, like if Braylon Allen is available because you can probably roll him out like as a desperation running back 2, he should be snapped up because he'll probably like be the unicorn if Breece Hall goes down. Now, Garrett Wilson, still 9 targets. I did see that there was a comment by Aaron Rodgers when he and Garrett Wilson get on the same page. It's going to be special. So you may not have league winner Garrett Wilson, but you're probably getting a push for what you paid for by the end of the year. Allen Lazard, 84% snaps, low air yards in this one. He did score on a screen. Mike Williams was down to 45% snaps, 4 for 3 for 34 in this game. I don't know how much I would be stashing Mike Williams in this offense going forward. He is going to be in that boom bust wide receiver 3 range. That's what he's done all of his career when it comes down to that. Did see a comment about Tyler Conklin at 93% snaps. My question would be like, when is he going to win me leagues? When is he going to be the red zone guy in this offense? Like, we could talk about like Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams will always probably be the red zone guy over Tyler Conklin, which is going to give you a very limited ability for him to win you a week or a league at that point. Now, if I'm in like deeper leagues where I'm rolling Tyler Conklin, I've kind of given up trying to chase tight ends at this point. And there are certain guys like your Tommy Trembles that I would probably be going after before I would just be settling that like on Tyler Conklin being my set and forget tight end going forward. All right. When it comes to the Lions, remember they got a bye coming up here. Jahmyr Gibbs, 46% snaps. Monty was at 51% snaps. I imagine these guys are going to be relatively close when it comes to overall opportunities. Gibbs always higher because of the receiving work in this one. Did score off of a lateral. Vaki was only at 1% snaps. So like when you're wrong, you're wrong. I don't think he's necessarily a cuff. I'm expecting that he would eat a little bit more into these two guys. Now, again, this might be another one because of like it was a closer game and they just like forgot to be cute. But right now, if you did roster Vaki as a cuff, like I don't necessarily think you have to do that. Jamison Williams, 71% snaps, only 63% air yards on 3 targets. The Sun God had 63 air yards on his all his targets. Tim Patrick was up to 50% snaps. A-Rob was also active. Khalif Raymond was down to 7% snaps. Why this is important is it probably means like A-Rob and Tim Patrick are going to be that big X, and they are expecting to keep Jamison Williams snaps down, which makes sense. So like, I don't know how much that would still downgrade his fantasy appeal because of that, because I would rather have better opportunities. This offense is going to be like very inconsistent again, even with Laporta being out, trying to guess like who's going to get opportunities. So when it comes to Laporta, did see it was reported it was a low ankle sprain instead of the dreaded high ankle sprain. Remember, they have a week 5 bye. So like, yeah, you're going to need a 1-week rental. Brock Wright, really good at football. I don't know how super fantasy relevant he's going to be if you're going to be chasing that. The Packers, with Jordan Love this week, like he was out. Maybe he'll play this week. I would still expect that they go one more week with Willis when it comes down to that. And that means that like Willis would be a streamer again. Josh Jacobs, 52% snaps. Emmanuel Wilson was at 41% snaps. Roster your cuffs at this point. I was talking about this after week 1 when he was like heavily efficient. 24% snaps, 4 for 46, 3 for 2, and a receiving touchdown. Or not a receiving touchdown, 3 for 2 in the passing game. But this last week against Tennessee, 41% snaps, 12 for 50, 2 for 2 for 35 and touchdown. So with Marshawn Lloyd not being healthy and not being eaten into him, if Josh Jacobs goes down, I would expect that like you're going to get like pretty close to full bell cow when it comes to Wilson at this point. Now, the bigger issue when it comes to Wilson and Josh Jacobs in this last game, because Josh Jacobs wasn't very efficient, is how much is this going to turn into 1A and 1B at that point? So again, like if I'm the Josh Jacobs owner, I'm cuffing everybody else like sneaky stash in deeper leagues, like when it comes down to trying to chase that. Now, Jaden Reed was at 57% snaps in this game, 6 for 4 for 50, another 2 for 19 in passing game. He's the number one. If Willis is the quarterback, you're probably looking at like a low end 2, a very solid flex. If Love is the starting quarterback, Dobbs 73% snaps, he's going to jump like all the way up into like a dirty wide receiver 2 in that one. Christian Watson was down to 54% snaps, 2 for 2 for 67. So he's going to be a boom bust guy, probably regardless who the quarterback is. Wicks was at 46% snaps. Melton was 27% snaps. Now, I did see this when it comes to Tucker Kraft. He did leave the game with the shoulder. He's dealing with that pec. He was down to 67% snaps. So again, like there is a lot of like asterisks. I talked about this in like Chasing the Dragon, like whether or not I would be rolling out Kraft or Musgrave. You're looking at like who's healthy and who's the quarterback when it comes down to this guy. Now, Panthers, Bryce Young was benched. We already knew that. This is not a real football channel. Like, a lot of trade speculation when it comes down to him. Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, 26 to 37, 319, 3 touchdowns. Depending on what your quarterback situation is, depending on what your league settings are, yeah, I would probably be chasing that if I can get him for like a bag of chips. Chuba Hubbard, this gets really interesting, at least for one more week. Yeah, you're looking at like top 5, top 10 running back for one more week, and then we can start speculating on Jonathan Brooks. 58% snaps, 21 for 114, 5 for 5 for 55 with a tug, red zone usage, 3 carries, 2 targets. Like, this is unicorn usage, out there. Now, Miles Sanders at 42% snaps. I did look that he was getting mixed in a little bit early in the game, so I thought this was going to be like, because it was sort of a blowout. It wasn't, but like Chuba's getting the stuff that you want when it comes down to it. So like, if I can get like, I'm going to get one more week out of Chuba Hubbard with this usage, I'm definitely rolling him out. And then I imagine that you're probably going to get the usage flop with Jonathan Brooks if he comes off of the pup at that point. But Chuba Hubbard in this offense, like, yeah, that's really interesting. I don't know who's going to sell them to you if you're going to go buy Chuba, and you can speculate a little bit on Chuba. Like, you're going to be buying high. You may only have like a 1 week rental. There's no guarantee with Jonathan Brooks in this offense what's going to go on in the future. Just remember that. And then if Brooks was stashed or dropped, I would be stashing him at this point just to see what's going to go on in the future. Deontay Johnson, 86% snaps, 14 for 8 for 122 and a tug. I would imagine that those targets are going to remain somewhat consistent, but this is another one of those things like, if everybody knows you're going to throw 14 times to a guy, like, where are the other targets going to go to with Adam Thielen get knocked out with a hamstring? Jonathan Mingo was at 66% snaps. Now, I don't think that Jonathan Mingo is going to be a league winner in this one. Like, that's why I would generally look at some of the other guys like Leggett, first round draft pick. I think that he's more of a manufactured touch guy than he's going to go out there and earn opportunities in this offense. But again, like, it's going to come down to what you're trying to guess in the offense. That's why I would generally go after like your Tommy Trembles if I was going to guess on this. So good athletic measurables coming out of Notre Dame. Tight ends is a weird position. It takes a little bit longer to develop in this one. This was a guy that we've kind of been tracking on breaking out for a while on this one. So you're looking at like Sanders at 35% snaps. So 3 for 3 for 29. And then a vacated number 2 in an offense because he's a tight end. So like, if there was a guy that I would be going after, probably not Leggett, it would be Tremble at this point to take advantage of the Adam Thielen IR injury. So even with Mingo, if you're in that type of league like Mingo, I don't know how he's going to win you a league at this point. I don't know how Leggett's necessarily going to win you a league. Tommy Tremble could win me a league if I'm going to be that guy that's going to go after that. All right. The Patriots, they were blown out. So again, Drake May didn't look good. Going to have a little bit of nimbly-bimbly when he rolls in there. Jacoby Brissett's going to be a game manager. I probably want nothing to do with his offense. That means, like, if I was going to sell on Ramondre, it probably would have been last week. Antonio Gibson, 37% snaps, 5 for 29, 3 for 3 for 8. Like, you're cuffing your stashing at that point, like, whatever. Like, I don't want a piece of this offense if I can get away with it. But at least we can tell the story with Antonio Gibson. Ramondre, 46% snaps, 6 for 23, a fumble lost. Volume-based RB2 on a bad offense, has a finger. You do you when it comes to that stuff. Pop Douglas, 83% snaps, 9 for 7 for 69. So again, like, deeper leagues, when it comes down to like needing something to in your Devils leagues, 45 air yards on those 9 targets. Again, I don't know how he wins me a league. Polk was down to 50% snaps. Osborne is a wide receiver, 75% snaps. Didn't see anything on Baker. And then hopefully with Hunter Henry, you didn't chase the dragon. I believe Hooper had more targets in this game. He was at 63% snaps, 3 for 2 for 9 on that one. So again, like your Conklins, your Hunter Henrys, like there is a reason why I would go after certain other guys that have upside than trying to chase some of these guys that are going to be like very inconsistent when it comes to your ability. Like, yeah, Kyler Conklin is likely going to be relatively safe because he's going to have a guaranteed usage. You're going to get like K. Dotton, Tyler Conklin, some of those guys that are going to be like high snap share, which means they're going to have the ability for guaranteed points that some other guys are not going to have. But again, I am not trying to come in third place. That's why the background is what the background is. And when you're coming down to some of that stuff. Now, the Raiders, Gardner Minshew was benched, but he'll remain the quarterback this week. AOC came in. He threw a tug, 9 for 12 for 82 in this game. Zamir White can be dropped for a number of reasons. 22% snaps. And then Madison is the guy that they bring in when it comes to valuable touches. He vultured another touchdown this one. So like 44% snaps, red zone usage vulture, boom bust on a bad offense. I don't want either one of those guys. Amir Abdullah, 34% snaps, This is another thing when it comes to like coaching. When you have usage like this, there's a lot of like mismanagement that's likely going to go on, especially when you have like Dylan Labe that's inactive. So again, if I'm speculating on anybody and I'm in deeper leagues, it would probably be like Dylan Labe, that they can get at least some usage out of that at that point. Devontae Adams, disappointing. 9 targets, 95% snaps. Jacoby Myers, 93% snaps, 9 targets, did have a tug. Trey Tucker, I talked about this in Chasing Dragon. 81% snaps, 9 for 7, 96, 1 tug, 105 air yards. Myers had 87 air yards. Adams had 62 air yards. So like maybe, again, deeper leagues. I don't know how much like wide receiver threes win me leagues. At this point, Bowers 66% snaps, Myers 48% snaps. I did look this up with Bowers and Meyer, Michael Meyer, that they are split when it comes to red zone opportunities, and there's going to be limited red zone opportunities when it comes to this guy. So this lowers the possibility that you're going to get some type of unicorn season from Brock Bowers. Still probably going to be able to return on your investment, but again, if they're getting in the red zone and the red zone opportunity, they're going to have a limited amount of red zone opportunities, and then they're getting divvied up to other guys. It's really going to hurt Brock Bowers being able to have that season. So remember, and I'll bring up this one because I'm thinking about it right now. When you're looking at like Kyle Pitts, his rookie year, when he did, where's it at? 110 targets, 68 receptions, 1,000 yards. He only had 1 touchdown. He finished his tight end 7. So the guy that got the magical tight end, like your Laporta that has like 10 touchdowns, is going to have just the same amount of opportunity to win your league as you do. He's going to have a slightly higher one because you need this like outlier week of targets and opportunities, and he just needs a tug. All right, moving on to the Rams. Kyron Williams, when you're wrong on this one because this gets like really crazy. 90% snaps, 24 for 89, 2 tugs, and they're 2 for 2 for 27 and tugs. And the reason why I'm wrong is in 3 games, Kyron Williams did the same thing that why he was a unicorn last year. Red zone usage for Kyron Williams. Nobody else has any opportunities in the offense in the red zone. 19 carries, 4 touchdowns, 5 targets, another touchdown. That's all you got to know when it comes down to that. Like, yeah, he should be an RB2 in certain regards, but he's going to be an RB1 because he's going to score touchdowns in the offense. So again, going after the guys that get red zone opportunities versus like those guys that put up like the gravy. Ronnie Rivers at 10% snaps, Blake Corum 0. And this is just a really odd draft pick. And, sometimes the process is right. 3rd round draft pick, a guy that can't stay that high on usage. And then other times it's like, well, they don't care because they don't care about your fantasy lineup. We'll talk about the Ravens here in a second. Puka's on IR with a knee. And I was seeing that this is like going to be mid-season before he could theoretically come back. Cooper Kupp, he's out, but remember, they didn't put him on IR. Demarcus Robinson, 93% snaps, 4 targets. Tyler Johnson was at 50% snaps. Jordan Whittington, and this is another one. If you're chasing some of the guys that are out there, and this is why sometimes it's not quite that simple to go like we're just going to plug that guy in. Remember, 38% snaps, 3 for 3 for 28. So again, like when he's on the field, they're getting him opportunities, and it just becomes an issue. Like when are they going to go, hey, we need to have him stay on the field? So he's still the guy to be stashing if you're in those leagues when it comes down to that, as opposed to your Tutu Atwell, 74% snaps, 5 for 4 for 93. Did have a 50-yard late. He's going to be boom bust if you're going to be going after that guy. Remember, he's going to have a limited skill set because he's 5'9", 165 in this offense. Now, the Rams, and this is a little strange outlier because the Rams live in 3 wide receivers. Hunter Long, the tight end 2, 45% snaps. Colby Parkinson, 100% snaps, 5 for 3 for 21. So in order for Whittington to actually be able to eat into this role, he's going to have to be the wide receiver 2 in this offense. So there's something to be paying attention to if they're going to be living in their 2 tight end sets for their foreseeable future. Now, again, I told you the Ravens, they don't care about your fantasy lineup. If Derrick Henry does what he's doing on like 59% snaps, then it doesn't matter. 25 for 151, 2 touchdowns, and then he threw in like 23 receiving yards on top of that. Hill right now, he's going to be the cuff. He's going to have like certain fringe value because of the usage. 41% snaps, 5 for 33, 2 for 2 for 21. Ali would be theoretically able to come off the IR next week or after next week. And then you're looking at what we're hearing about Keaton Mitchell down the line when it comes to holding on to Justice Hill. So Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers, that conversation about like who has more value. Well, Bateman did 62% snaps, 4 for 3 for 28 and a tug, right? Zay Flowers, 67% snaps, 4 for 3 for 20. Now, this gets even better because Nelson Aguilar, 60% snaps, 1 for 1 for 56. Mark Andrews, 33% snaps, 1 target. Isaiah Likely, 62% snaps, 1 for 1 for 4. Oh, yeah. Charlie Kohler, the blocking tight end, 41% snaps, 1 for 1 for 30. Yeah, they don't care about your fantasy lineup. They're just trying to win football games. The Saints, Alvin Kamara, league winner, 86% snaps, 26 for 87, 3 for 3 for 40. And this is an ugly game script. So again, like that perfect usage is going to stay there. Olave, rare red zone target, 80% snaps, 6 for 6 for 86. Rashid Shaheed, if you picked him up, do not drop him. 75% snaps, 5 targets, 105 air yards. Yeah, boom bust wide receiver 2 attached to what we can still speculate on is going to be like an okay offense at worst. Cedric Tillman, 44% snaps. Mason Tipton, yeah, if you're in your deeper leagues or your dynasty leagues, like you're stashing him, 32% snaps, remains consistent, 3 for 2 for 11 in this game. So like, you're gonna get a spike week out of Mason Tipton at this point. To bring this up, I go clear this one out. When it comes down to like 4-3 burner coming out of Yale. So like at this point, like that snap share is remaining relatively consistent, if not going up. The opportunities are going up. Yeah, that would be the guy. Like if you're into that type of thing going forward, like that again, if you're on the field and they're going to uptick you, eventually you're going to get that spike week that we can kind of guess ahead of time when it comes down to that. Taysom Hill, he was out with a bruised lung. I didn't know it was that bad. Foster Moreau, 71% snaps. Now, I did see this on Twitter that Jawan Johnson has been on a quote-unquote pitch count since the foot surgery. He's at 56 or 50% snaps. I don't care, but this explains some of the usage with these tight ends when it comes down to that. Seahawks, sort of a blowout against the Dolphins in this one. Like, again, they didn't have to play aggressively, even though Geno Smith, I think, had 2 picks in the game. He does have 2 picks because I wrote it down. No news on Kenneth Walker. And this gets a little interesting because some of the internet guys I was listening to, like, this injury could be really bad. They did give him a Friday limited practice. We're not going to know what the results of that Friday limited practice were because they wanted to more than likely give him that limited practice so they could see how he felt the next day. Now, this is going to be an indication of whether or not he gets a limited or full or no practice participation when it comes down to tomorrow, when it comes to Kenneth Walker. So in this case, like I would been saying, like, I think it's about 50-50 that he does play right now. If you have Charbonnet, you're not dropping him. If you have Charbonnet, or if you have the Kenneth Walker owner, I would be buying Charbonnet at this point because 84% snaps, 18 for 91, 2 tugs, 4 for 3 for 16. Like, yeah, at this point, if there's a catastrophic injury to Kenneth Walker, like Charbonnet is going to be a league winner at that one. So again, like your roster your cuffs. DK, 83% snaps, 71-yard touchdown pass. Lockett down to 56% snaps. JSN, 88% snaps. Bobo, 30% snaps. Like, Bobo will likely vulture work because of he's going to be on the field a certain amount, especially in the red zone. That's just what his usage is going to be. It's DK because of this usage, he's going to stay a wide receiver 2. Everybody else is going to be very volatile. That includes Noah Fant, who was at 44% snaps, 6 for 6 for 60. So I was expecting that his snap share would be like in that 80% range. It was down. Barner was at 28% snaps. Pharaoh Brown was up to 47% snaps in this one. Like, no idea what was going on with the snap share between Pharaoh Brown and Noah Fant in this one. So that's going to be very interesting when it comes to trying to guess if we're going to get certain amounts of Noah Fant spike weeks this year. Steelers, Justin Fields will remain the starter. I don't know how much I would be chasing this, even though like generally like rushing quarterbacks, this is just generally not how they're using Justin Fields. If he's going to remain this like game manager with a little bit of an opportunity to have some rushing upside, then he's still not going to be fantasy relevant, even though he fell in the end zone this week. So the 14 for 57 that he had week 1, like his opportunities have been going down, his efficiency has been going down, and his passing work has been going up. So like now you're in this range where like theoretically he has rushing upside, but he's actually just a game manager when it comes from his passing upside. So yeah, I probably am not quite as interested in that overall. Najee, 59% snaps, 22 total opportunities, but he has an elbow. He was supposedly in a sling. Tomlin did come out and said he's fine, which is coach speak for go stash Cordero Patterson in this one. Jalen Warren, 34% snaps, only 4 opportunities. He got yanked from the game because Tomlin was like, he didn't look good. He had an MRI. He's right now week to week, which again means he's not going to play this week. So again, if you need that like RB2, like you're picking up Cordell Patterson for a pack of chips, and then you're hoping that you're right at this point, because what's a win worth to you and your opponent right now going on down the line. Now, Pickens, 74% snap, 7 for 5 for 57. Again, if you bought your Pickens share, you should have known what you're getting on that one. Van Jefferson got knocked out with an eye in this one. So Calvin Austin was up to 54% snaps, 5 for 4 for 95 in a tug. He's going to have a certain amount of spike weeks in that wide receiver 30, like boom bust range, more than likely, especially if Jefferson's out. But Scotty Mitchell, 56% snaps, 2 for 2 for 31. So again, like, who's going to be the wide receiver 2 in this offense? Roman Wilson was out. Muth, 81% snaps. He was the guy that Derwin James hit, and then Derwin James got a one game suspension for the Chargers. Yet another reason that Rashee Rice is probably going to have a pretty good week this week for the Chiefs. So 81% snaps for Muth, 5 for 4 for 33 in that one. But this is with MyCole Pruitt out. Washington was at 51% snaps. Hayward, 16% snaps. So I don't know how consistent you're going to be looking at when it comes to Muth down the line. All right, Texans. So I did talk about this on Chasing the Dragon to bring up the Texans backfield. You can see that Cam Akers in this game is only at 43% snaps, right? And then, to be honest, the guy that I was a little worried about, 42% snaps when it comes to Dare. The guy that I was a little interested in finding out what was going to happen, British Brooks, only 4% snaps, 1 carry. So when it comes down to usage, and again, this was a blowout. So again, grain of salt on this one. That 43% snaps, like, it means that Dare does have a particular role within the offense. So it's going to cap the overall ceiling of Akers. Now, if we can guess on this game with Jacksonville, if you've already picked up Akers and you're waiting on Mixon, yeah. If you're worried about your opponent rolling out Akers this week against Jacksonville, I'd understand that. Otherwise, like, I don't necessarily think that there's like long-term value, especially like you're waiting on Dameon Pierce to find out what goes on, because like this could get like really ugly really fast when it comes down to all this stuff. So like that's why like I think Patterson has a lot more value if you're trying to guess on a lottery ticket, 1 week rental on this one. All right, and I can bring this one back up so we can talk about their wide receivers. So Tank Dell right now, he's dealing with like hand, wrist, ribs. So like I'm going to guess like maybe there's a chance he's going to be out. Nico, 82% snaps, 10 targets, 100 air yards. Stephon Diggs, 85% snaps, 12 for 10 for 97 air yards, which means if you get into a particular script when it comes to the Texans, Diggs is definitely going to be an upgrade at that point when it comes down to that. So Robert Woods was at 19% snaps in this game. Mechie was a healthy scratch. Schultz was at 96% snaps, 5 targets. So if Tank Dell is out, this would move Schultz into definite top 10 tight end weekly usage for the time being, at least for 1 week if he's available on your wire. Titans, Will Levis did Will Levis things again. 3 picks. One of them was a pick 6, three sacks, a fumble lost. So we want to be streaming all the defenses that we can against the Titans. Unpredictable, if not bad offense. Tony Pollard disappointed, 63% snaps to Spears' 37. So again, you're probably got like an RB2 when it comes to Pollard. Ridley, I won't trust, 72% snaps, 3 targets. Hopkins was at 46% snaps, 7 for 6 for 73 in a tug on 46% snaps. So if you're going to try and chase that dragon on Hopkins with this offense, with that snap share, I probably wouldn't. Boyd was at 76% snaps. I don't care about their tight ends. When it comes to the Vikings, this was another blowout against the Texans. Darnold has a knee bruise. He threw 4 tugs. I would be chasing this. I went back and I listened to my video from before the season when JJ McCarthy hurt his knee. At this point, like, yeah, the league winner, like if you spent on your capital on Darnold, hopefully you drafted him coming in the season and you've been rolling and feeling really happy about it. Aaron Jones, 60% snaps. it does look like it's going to be like a two-third, one-third split when it comes to these two guys. Chandler remains at 35% snaps, 7 for 13, pure cuff, I would say at this point. I don't think he has enough standalone value unless you get like lucky on a particular spike week. So with Aaron Jones, 19 for 102, 6 for 5 for 46 in a tug. I'm not quite ready to say he's an RB1 because age apex guys end to fall off late. But because of the offensive situation, yeah, you're getting really close. If this is a good offense. And then no news on Jordan Addison. That means like Naylor is going to be like a high end 3, low end 2 if Addison remains out a month. The tight end was at 81% snaps with a touchdown. So remember, if a guy's on the field that much, he's going to have a certain amount of streamability, and no news on Hawkinson last time I checked on anything. So when we're looking at some of the teams that are out there right now that I would be looking to stream, from a defensive perspective, I already talked about this, like Texans and Miami. And then next week, we can start speculating on some of the teams that are out there. Can't take advantage of the Titans next week in general. Maybe Green Bay. Already talked about that. Maybe the Colts, maybe Jacksonville because of how bad did they look so far, like Patriots in Miami. Primarily, I want to be rolling out some of the premier defenses next week because of the matchups, if I can get into that. Next week's buys are the Lions, the Titans, the Eagles, and the Chargers. And then if you're looking for the actual stashes from after waivers, Gary Endo is the cuff right now, I would say, for the 49ers. I'm guessing on Herbert or Johnson if I'm in a competitive league, the guy that I can get for cheaper at that point when it comes down to that, because Swift is bad. Not too interested on Beatty, Bidet, whatever, outside of like super deep leagues because of the offensive situation. I would be picking up Tommy Tremble because of the Adam Thielen IR. Cordell Patterson, we can track to be a 1-week rental at running back right now, and then roster your cuffs when it comes to Emmanuel Wilson. If you're going to be the Green Bay or Josh Jacobs owner, or if you're going to be just picking up lottery tickets deeper on benches. All right, so that's what I got this week, and then I'll be back with the Griff.